Hello friends, welcome to my channel, a channel for learning simple coding. If you find this video to be helpful, please like, share and subscribe my channel. In previous video, we have learned static rendering concept. In this video, we are going to understand dynamic rendering, that is formally we call server-side rendering in Next.js. Dynamic rendering means to generate HTML pages on the client request. So if client make a request, then request goes to server and server then convert the page, JavaScript page into HTML page. That is called dynamic rendering. That means we are not generating HTML pages at build time. They are generating at runtime. Remember that. For that we have to use cache no store for fetch function for server side rendering. And remember that I can call server side rendering also, dynamic rendering also, but in version 14 of Next.js they called dynamic rendering. In previous version they called server side. Both are same, and we can check at build time also that they are generating a dynamic rendering. So how we can do this? In last example, I written that code on that example as per the static side rendering. For that I use this force cache. And in this page where we are displaying the quotes, then I also use here force cache and I use this generate static param function. So this generate static param function is used to generate static site generation, or you can say static rendering. So I am making comment of this. Remember that this function is not used for dynamic rendering. So I am making comment for this. I am just making a modification in the previous code to make you understand that all concepts are same, just rendering concept is different. So for dynamic rendering, do not need to use this function, and in place of this I say here no store. Remember, no store means we don't want to store caching. If we are disabling the caching, that means we don't want to render this page at browser, we want at server side. So this is the first change. Now what I have to do, I have to make change also here, no store. Remember, no store, that means here also we don't want this page should be rendered at client side. We want this as a server side or dynamic rendering. Remember that we are making only few changes, this change and this page also, this change, and I have commented this generate static page. So now this code is converted as per the dynamic rendering. Now if you see the output, we have a quotes. You see, if I click on this, then we have a value also, but right now remember that these are generating dynamically, these code are generating dynamically. These HTML page is not generated at build time. Now how we can check this? For checking this, I am just closing this application right now and I try to show you the build process. Earlier I showed this build process to you, then it was npm run build. So earlier this build command was showing static site generation or static rendering. Now it will show that this code is for dynamic rendering. So generating this, now you see in this time we do not have SSG. Remember that static site generation is removed from this build process. Why? Because we are not using generate static param function. So now dynamic and static is there. If you go upside and you will see that on the quotes, this is the quotes, you see this is the quotes and this is dynamic and this is dynamic. Remember that both the code right now is dynamic. That means it's a dynamic rendering or server side rendering. Remember that this time this application build, because I have removed this no store, so it's not caching, and I have removed the generate static param function also. So static site generation is removed. Now these URL or these routes dynamically generating HTML page on the server side, and you can see this at confirm that server render, server side rendering, dynamic rendering is there, and example it's given here. You see earlier in the previous example it was showing that it is static site generation, now it's showing it is a dynamic rendering. So you can see yourself that each and everything is clear now. If you do some modification in this code, then code is changed into dynamic rendering. If you override this method generate static param, if you override this function generate a static param and you return the number of ID or number of page you want to generate and you link with this ID, this page, this quotes, then it becomes static site generation. If we remove this function and we put here no store, then it becomes server side rendering or dynamic rendering. One thing you should remember also that in the previous version of Next.js, we use get server side props function, get a static props function, get a static path function for server side rendering or for client side rendering. These functions not supported in Next.js 14 version. So in place of get server side props function, we use this setting. Remember that. So in place of get server side, we use this get server side props function, we use no store. This is the replacement in Next.js 14. If you understand understand how to do dynamic rendering from this video, please like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching this video.